Welcome to Discovering. Well, for deer hunters, December 1st means it's time to put the rifle back in the cabinet. But for trappers, it's time to gear up for bobcat, pine marten, and fisher. Join me as we once again tag along with UP trapper Bob Whitens, this time in search of bobcat and fisher.
Finally got a chance to get out and do some bobcat trapping. Here in the UP, we have a trapping season for cats from 1st of December till the end of January.
And we'll meet an NMU student who's carrying on the Dr. Juice family tradition.
The tarsal glands and everything comes from the UP here.
Sit back, put your feet up. It's Monday night and time for Discovering.
The secret streams that flow beneath the cliffs of colored stone. Forest thick and healthy with birch and pine and oak. Surrounded by the greatest lakes this world has ever known. The black bear's awesome presence as he roams the hills and fields. Call of the timber wolf, the loon's lonesome trill. The eagle soaring high above, the trout lies deep and still. These are what I treasure, the only way I measure feelings that I have for this fine land. There is so much to discover when you're a long-time lover of northern Michigan.
There's hardly a time in the UP where you don't have an excuse to get out in the woods. November 30th marked the end of rifle season. December 1st means the beginning of delayed archery season and small game season. Along with that comes the opening of the trapping season for bobcat, fisher, and pine marten. I once again found myself tagging along with Uncle Bob to learn a bit about making sets for bobcat and fisher.
We finally got a chance to get out and do some bobcat trapping. Here in the UP, we have a trapping season for cats from 1st of December till the end of January. And it also coincides with the fisher trapping. We have a 1st to the 15th of December to trap fishers. We get kill tags for fisher, 1 kill tag for a fisher or a marten, and 2 tags for bobcat. There's many different kind of sets you can make for bobcat. You can make natural pen sets, cubby sets. Some people like to use a body grip and trap. We're going to make a foothold set in a cubby pen. Now, what I do is a lot of times I'll make my own little boxes out of scrap wood and just use those to duplicate a natural cubby. In this case, it's an old piece of plywood here. We're going to find a location that I think the cats may be coming through and get that set down in there, and we'll go through the process of actually making the set. Okay, we got a spot here that we're hoping is a good area for the bobcats to travel. One of the best ways to find a travel route is to go out after a light snow and just look for tracks, because bobcats are kind of habitual animals. They like to run their same runs, so if you can find a track, there's a good chance every 4 or 5 days you might make that same run. That's probably the best way to get them located. So we like to keep it a sheltered area where there's not too much snow. We're under some old pines here. We're going to use this box and try to get it in here so that the mouth of the box approaches the area that we think that cat's mite's going to approach from. And now I'm going to try to cover that up with some boughs to make it look a little more natural. The other reason we like to put some boughs on the front of this thing is that if you do get a heavy snowfall, it kind of keeps the snow from coming down over the top of your trap. We don't really want snow on the trap. Snow tends to freeze when it gets wet and clogs the trap, so we like to keep that area dry. Now I'm going to go back, get some bait and some trap bedding material, and we'll finish the set. Got some beaver meat that I saved from last year's beaver trapping that we're going to use for bait. That's a beaver head. What I like to do with these is, once I get them out, thaw them out, get some salt on them. You salt them slightly and that kind of keeps them from freezing. And they still have an odor. And in the back of this pen up here on top, I got a hook up here. I'm gonna hook that bait on. A lot of times when they can see it more readily, they'll be keep their focus on that bait rather than on anything else, and you got a better chance of getting them to stick their foot in the trap. I'm gonna try to get that trap set just to one side here, because you got to figure for the bobcats, when they're walking, their feet are spread a little bit, so we're gonna keep the trap a little bit to one side of the box. I got a nice flat location here for the trap, and you need to get a plastic down first so that trap doesn't freeze to the ground. This is number 4 coil trap with an offset jaw, and I get double drags on this one. Yeah, what I do a lot of times is put, especially for bobcats where I don't want them to go too far, I'll put 2 drags on my trap. You can see I got a standard drag here, like a harpoon drag that'll hook up. Then I'll add another drag here a couple of feet from the end. Again, you want to be careful with these guys. Get your hand under the jaw because they're not too pleasant. If you happen to get one, their foot and finger in one. A lot of people say, why do you use such a big trap for bobcat? Because bobcats got a pretty good sized front paw. And you want to make sure that when you get them, you get a good grip on them. I'm setting that trap just a little off to the side here. Now I want to make sure that this trap is not tippy. You notice it's got a little tip to it. So I got to do some blocking here to make sure that it's pretty stable. Bobcats are not near as fussy as coyotes when it comes to trapping. Coyotes are really sensitive of where they're stepping. What we do is we block, get a stick under this jaw, underneath here somehow so we can get that to set solid. Wedge it in there good, pretty good there. Now we don't want to put anything freezable around that trap. Anything will freeze, so I'm using some of this old fluffed up fern here. That makes a nice trap covering in a natural spot. Now that stuff is nice and dry, so that it shouldn't hurt the action of the trap at all. You want to make sure that cat steps over and puts his paw. So I like to use a stick here, called a guide stick. Just put a pencil size or finger size stick here. So we want the animal to step over that stick and right onto the pan. We're gonna add some bobcat lure. Now, bobcats don't have a real good sense of smell, not near as good as a coyote. But if they get close enough, they'll pick up that odor. So we really want that odor right kind of above here somewhere, so it'll disperse in the general area. And if they get close enough, they'll see the bait and come in. Bobcats don't have a real good sense of smell, but they got real good eyesight. And they're very attracted to movements. So if you get something that moves in the wind, it doesn't take a whole lot. If you got moonlight shining on it and that's flipping in the wind a little bit, if they're coming through this area, they'll get their attention. And of course, once we get them over here, we got a pretty good chance of getting them in our trap. So I think we're pretty good shape on this set. So all we need is some bobcats to come along. Okay, we're gonna do some, get a few sets out for Fisher today. We got a Fisher season running here from December 1st to the 15th. We're allowed either one Fisher or one Martin. And in this part of the UP, we mostly have some Fisher. I really don't know of any Martin around this particular area. So we're gonna make a couple sets here that are, that we like to use for Fisher. This is we're gonna take this down in the woods here and use this guy. And we'll show you how to set. This is a typical box set. We're going to put a conibear trap in here and some bait in the back. And we'll get that set up. And we're also going to make a running pole set for Fisher. Fisher are like they're climbing animals. They climb trees. And they hunt squirrels, brown squirrels, mice, and so on. So one good way to make a set for them is if you can find a pole, a leaning tree, especially one like this that's kind of dead-ended there, so they have to come up from the bottom. we can make a set right on that pole. This is a 220 conibear, about the right size for fisher. If you're going to use these in Michigan on public land, they have to be off the ground at least 5 feet, or they have to be in the cubbies like we use them with the guard on the front. In order to anchor them to a tree like this, I'm using what they call a conibear clip. The bottom jaws clip into there, so the trap is centered on that pole. But that's going to hold the trap in place right there. Now we're going to wire the trap on the pole so that if we make a catch, that animal suspended right in that trap, you can't go any place. I'll wire a piece of beaver meat right up here. We want that animal to focus on this bait. So we're gonna, if I can, I'm gonna push that wire right through that thing and wire it right to here. Now, it looks like a simple set, but fishers aren't too fussy. They're not afraid of a trap. They're gonna focus on that meat and they're gonna come up here and try to get at that bait. Now we do have to put some kind of a cover over this because we don't want the birds getting at this. So what I do a lot of times is just take some boughs. I'll show you a little trick that I use to put them on there with. And put a few more on there just to cover up a little better. And the last thing we got to make sure we do is take off our safety catches. So we're armed and fired here, ready for a fisher. It's a very common set that's used, especially when these trappers are trapping like in Maine and northern US, Canada. Use a lot of these kind of sets for fisher and martin, and out in the western in the mountains, etc. Alaska, because they're freeze-proof trap. You can get 2 feet of snow, whatever, it doesn't matter, the trap's still going to work. So it's a very common set used for tree-running animals like fisher and martin. All right, we got a spot here that we're going to try for fisher. Again, we're not sure if they're coming through here. It'd be a lot better if we could get out here after a snowfall and find their actual location or their run. But it's kind of a natural place for them, so we're going to put a box cubby in here for them. And here we're going to use I'm just using one of these pre-made boxes. Same kind of a trap. And, if we're going to use this kind of a trap on the ground, we have to have this type of box with a barrier. Trap has to be back here at least 8 inches. So we're going to put this box up on a little angle here on the front here to keep it up in case we get more snowfall. There we go. Trap's in the back of the box. That fisher goes in there to get that bait. He's got to pass over that trap. So in order to fasten this guy now, they're a pretty strong animal, so we want to make sure we got this thing wired to a good stout location so he can't pull it any place. So most likely he's not going to go very far with a body grip. But just in case, we use this log as a drag. And again, in the snow, they're easy to find. Just wedge that in here someplace. Again, we want to cover these traps. Some evergreen boughs, keep the snow off. Kind of selected a location under this big cedar so that we don't get a lot of snowfall on it. I am going to put some lure here too, because fishers are attracted to lure. And this is kind of the same lure that I'm using for bobcat. If we put it back inside the box, it would work, but then it wouldn't disperse the smell as much. Up on top, we want the wind to carry that odor. And once the animal gets here, he'll find the bait. And hopefully we'll have ourselves a nice fisher. Fisher are one of the most valuable furs now, selling for anywhere from $100 to $150 a pelt. So they are valuable fur. They're nice and prime right now. So it'd be nice if we can get ourselves one filler tag. That's our goal. One thing about fisher trapping is you have to do some study work and a little research into them if you want to be successful, because they do have a certain area that they like to hunt in. So you gotta kind of learn their what they're living on. They eat squirrels, mice, and the one thing about a fisher that is unique to him is that he's the one animal that'll kill a porcupine, and they actually kill porcupine to quite an extent. They know how to flip them over and eat the animal from the inside, and even if they do get some quills in them, they have a real strong type of acid in their system that'll actually dissolve some of the quills that get into them. So many fishers are caught with residue of some quills around them, but it doesn't seem to bother them. They're tough. So that's unique about a fisher, and they like to hunt the edges of a highland, where the highland breaks off into a cedar swamp or a balsam swamp, because that seems to be the best area for prey. Another area is good for fishers is some of the pine plantations that border on the edge of a swamp, where there are a lot of rabbits, squirrels, especially pine squirrels, red squirrels, because they do like to prey on those kind of animals. So these are all areas you like to look for to find the tracks. Again, if you can find the tracks, find their location, it's always the best, because they're probably going to come back in that area again. Kind of we're sitting blind here now because we don't really know, because this is our first real snow. But as we go along, and if we find tracks, we'll just move our traps into the area where the animals are, and hopefully in the next week or so we can fill our tag. But that's what trapping's all about. You know, you're out there, you're matching wits with the animal, and it gets you outside. It's a lot better than sitting in the couch and watching football, especially when the Packers are playing as good as they are. So it gets you out, and the woods is kind of quiet now. You don't have the hunters are kind of quieted down. We're in the middle of seasons here, so you kind of got the woods to yourself, and especially after a fresh snow. I really enjoy going out after a fresh snow a couple days later and just looking at tracks. You'd be surprised what you can learn just checking the ground. See where the animals came, where they came from, what they're doing. Coyote tracks, bobcat tracks, wolf tracks, fisher tracks. They tell you a lot of stories. So one thing, if you're gonna trap, you have to learn about the animal, about the species. And the best way to find out is to follow their tracks. And once you get snow, you can follow their tracks and just see what they do, see where they go. And this is probably the basis for being a good trapper, is to find the location, really study the animal. And once you do that, you know, you can start having some success.
We'll be tagging along with Bob again soon. Next time to check the trap line in hopes of a catch. If you're into trapping, hunting, or fishing, there's a good chance that you're using scents to draw in your game, or somewhere along the way you've at least given it a try. There's a wide variety of scent products on the market these days, and one that has certainly stood the test of time is Dr. Juice. The Dr. Juice tradition started 3 generations ago with the insight of an old trapper, and has been passed down for generations, and now has been reformulated right here in the Upper Peninsula.
Dr. Juice started about 30 years ago with my father, but it goes back before that. My grandpa started using trapping scents and making his own scents and letting the skunk scents cure up in the sun and some rancid stuff. But it sure worked in getting the beavers and fox that were prevalent back in the day. And as you can see, still doing a little bit of trapping, continuing the tradition. My dad originally invented the fish scents, and those started about 35 years ago. The fish scents were created in the lab. He also had a biology degree when he graduated, and then went on to get his MD because he wanted to do research in the human field. But he used his knowledge of biology and the research in the human field to create the pheromones for the Dr. Juice fish attractants. And he took that farther and brought it over to the hunting world with the Dr. Juice deer attractants. And I have, 35 years later, reinvented the Dr. Juice deer attractant. I graduated from Northern Michigan University with a degree in biochemistry and have used the knowledge that I've gained in biochemistry and the organic synthesis that I've done in the labs to extract the pheromones from the tarsal glands of the deer. All the tarsal glands and everything comes from the UP here, and to make the scent, I make it right here in the trapping room. It's a natural way of making the scent versus some other of the scents out there are synthetic. This is a natural scent directly extracted from the deer glands. And tarsal glands are a universal scent. It creates an invader into the territory of the deer. And it works for does and bucks because it's an investigative scent. So that scent works very well for that. It also works well in the scrape. You can make a scrape, make a mock scrape, and pour some of the Dr. Juice deer attractant on the ground, and you can create an environment where the deer want to hang out in your deer hunting area. Well, this year recently, my dad and I are working on creating some scents for trapping. It's just really in the basic form right now, just experimenting with our own scents. Some of these beaver were taken using that beaver scents that we've created, and we also made muskrat lures to lure in the muskrat, and it's working great. Hopefully it can be on the market soon. We'll see what happens. Just gotta, critique it and make it the best it can be. You can go to the website and you can get the juice from there. It's also at Straight Line Archery in Ishpeming, and you can also pick it up at Switchback in Marquette here. And it's a local scent that I personally like to use and create it so that I can use it, and hopefully other people can use it and have a successful hunt as well.
Well, that's it for this week. I hope you enjoyed watching. Good luck to all the muzzleloaders and any bow hunters brave enough to hang off the side of a tree in December. We'll see you next week, right here on Discovering.